Hey YouTubers, 95 Speed GTA. This is my first official video back on YouTube after about a year and a half. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be replacing the steering wheel on my 2008 Nissan Altima. I would like to make this video on how to pull a steering wheel on a 2007 to 2011 Nissan Altima, but I'm not too sure if the procedure is still the same. It most likely, 99.9%, is, but I'm going to leave this on how to pull a steering wheel on your 2007 to 2009 Nissan Altima. I say this because the 2007 to 2009 Altima that I worked on, they're all the same. It's just there's a couple of key differences, but for this application, there's really no difference. So, here's what you're going to need to do the job. If you're replacing the steering wheel, like I am, you're going to need a new steering wheel. You can go to your junkyard and pick up one of these. This is really good. This is a leather wrapped steering wheel from an 09 Altima. Mine is not leather wrapped, and it's kind of faded and worn right up here at the 12 o'clock position. And this car is in really good condition after me getting it painted and having the interior redone and everything. So I want the car looking as best as possible. If you're doing other things like replacing a clock spring or whatever, this is the video that you'd want to use. So, we got our steering wheel. We're going to put that off to the side. The next thing that we're going to need is we're going to need our steering wheel puller kit. Now, don't get discouraged. If you don't have one of these, they're inexpensive. And you can go to your local auto parts store, like Advanced Auto Parts or O'Reilly Auto Parts or AutoZone. And you could rent these. You basically buy the tool. When you bring it back, they give you your money back. This was about 20 bucks, $22. It's made by OEM, and it's part number 27017. I rented this, and I wound up putting a label on it and keeping it. So, this is what it looks like. Sorry. This is what a steering puller looks like. You got your centerpiece. This actually goes into the center part of the steering shaft, and here are your assortment of bolts. You're only going to use 2 of them. We'll probably use maybe these 2 right here. It depends on what's in the steering wheel, what type of threads are in the steering wheel. This is a universal kit for many cars. It comes with a washer, which I'll show you how to use, and it comes with a spacer that usually goes on the bottom of here, and I'll show you how to use that too. So, this is the steering wheel puller kit. Put that off to the side. Next, you're going to need a pick tool. Now, if you don't have a pick tool, you could use a really skinny at the ends, flathead screwdriver, or some kind of a flathead screwdriver from like an eyeglass repair case. What you're going to use this for is there's 2 vanity pieces covering the 2 10mm bolts that hold the airbag in. And you're going to need to remove that. Sometimes you can just reach behind them and you can grab them with your fingernail, but if you can't, this type of pick tool is like the best tool to use. The next thing you're going to need is I brought my socket set out because I'm going to be doing more than one thing to this car. So what you're going to need out of your socket set is you're going to need a 10mm long socket, and this is going to be to get the airbag, to get to the airbag bolts. The next thing you're going to need, obviously, is a short extension. You don't have to have a long extension like this. I just grabbed it because it was right there. But you could have a short extension like a 2-inch or a 3-inch extension, 3/8 ratchet to go with your socket. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a wrench. Now this is a 10mm wrench. This is the first time me using this. I just picked this up. I thought they were pretty cool. This is actually a ratcheting wrench. And I'm going to use this to take the negative battery terminal off. Anytime you mess with the car's electrical system or the airbag, you have to discharge the vehicle of its electrical current. You also have to remove the negative battery terminal. The final thing you want to get is a flashlight. This is an LED flashlight that I just picked up that I thought was pretty cool and I wanted to use. It's about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So this is why I'm using this. My camera's pretty good with night vision, as long as it adjusts. but I want to make sure that when I take this video, you guys are able to see everything that I'm doing. So let's start by shutting the car off. Now with the car off, what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. This is going to come in really handy because we're not going to have these interior lights anymore. So let's do the battery terminal. On the 2008 Nissan Altima, you're going to find your battery on the right hand side of the motor when you lift up the hood. Now remember guys, in my previous video when I introduced my Altima, I did a little modifications to my car's electrical system. So my negative terminal is on this side. Your negative terminal is going to be on this side. The polarity is the plus and the minus are reversed because I have a different type of battery in the car. What you want to do, if you're unsure on which is positive and which one's negative, usually there'll be a red piece like this right by the battery, or as you can see there'll be a plus symbol and a minus symbol. Negative battery terminals don't always go by this, have a black wire, so do positive terminals. But usually most batteries made today, they're labeled with a plus and minus. So here's our negative. We're going to take our 10mm and we're going to loosen up the cable right here. We go counterclockwise. That's a shame I can't even get the ratchet in there. I wanted to try that out. We just loosen it up and we take it off and we put it off to the side. Now we're going to go back in the car and we are going to discharge the residual power that's in the car. As you can see, the alarm system is still going. That's because of the residual power that's inside the car. Okay, now we're back in the car. All the lights are off, but I still see that my LED lighting indicator is still on, so there's still residual power in the car. There's a couple things you can do to get the power totally out of the car. One of them is to pump the brake pedal. I just put my foot down on the brake and I watch it disappear. Or you can just turn the headlights on. Once you do that, it'll drain the residual power from the car and you won't have to worry about any type of power being inside the car. Now there's no more power in the car. Now we can get to work. I got my flashlight. Now you see that it's come in handy. Make sure you guys can see. Which you can. Remember those vanity pieces I was telling you about? Well, here it is. It's right here. So we're going to take our either flathead screwdriver or a pick tool, and there's going to be a little notch, which you could see it. Let me just zoom in a little bit for you. It's going to be a little notch right here. You'll be able to see it, and really all you do is you go like that, and it pops right out. You're going to find that on the other side of the steering wheel, and you do that, and then we're going to get to work on taking it out. I just took that one out with my finger now. They're really easy to take out. And once you do that, you're going to want to put them off to the side. I like to put them right there where the AC vent is. Now what we're going to do, we're going to take our 10mm. 10 millimeters in. We got it on the first bolt. I was planning on doing this in the daytime, but we got our extension. Now, going up, that's tightening. So what we want to do, we want to reverse this. Hold the steering wheel. That's bolt number 1. Once you get it loose, you can remove the ratchet, spin it out by hand. there's the first bolt. Put it up on top. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Now since we got the two 10mm out, what we're going to do is we're going to grab it and slowly pull out. That's the airbag and the controls too. It's a part of the airbag. It actually separates. So don't think if you ever want to put steering wheel controls in or replace your cruise control, you got to replace the airbag. You don't. I'll show you how that's set up. What you do is you give that pin a little push. Do with your finger, push it in, and then pull out. Okay. This is the wiring terminal for your cruise control, and if you have this, your stereo controls. Now since we got that out of the way, right here is like a little retainer for the airbag wires. What we're going to do is we're going to get the retainer out of the way. Now that we got that out of the way, we got that retainer, and we're going to move the wires out of the way. This may be a little difficult to do. Just be really careful when doing this. You don't want to... The clock spring and these are very delicate, so we do one wire at a time. That's one. That's two. We're not going to take it off from right here. What we're going to do now is, since we got the tension off that, these are the two wires that we're going to remove. This is kind of one of the reasons why we have to discharge the electrical system, because you can't do this with the car on, because then it's going to reset. It's going to set your airbag light off. And also, you don't want to take a risk of any kind of electrostatic shock, because that might detonate the airbag, and you don't want to do that, because these things, they come out at 200 miles an hour. So now what we're going to do is we have to lay the airbag flat. We lay it flat down. It's kind of going to be like upside down, but get it to where when the airbag lays down flat, the terminals are like this. And this is where that flathead screwdriver, or better yet, the pick tool, comes in. And if you guys have a pick tool, I'd really suggest using this. You got your orange and you got your yellow terminals. Remember that in this position, which I'm going to back out because I'm just going to show you guys. This is how the steering wheel is right now. Okay? The steering wheel, the airbag is basically upside down. See what I'm saying? It's not the way it's supposed to be. So we're going to make it so it's upside down like this, so we can work on it properly, because we can't have it the other way because the wires aren't long enough. Okay? Remember, your yellow, which is right here, is on your right hand side. Your orange is on the left hand side. Now we're going to take them out. Okay, I'm going to start with the yellow one first. You're going to take your flathead screwdriver or your pick tool, and right here you're going to see like an indent. And what you do is you go in like this, and you pry up until this black piece comes up. Once the black piece comes up, that means it's released. And you take your pick tool, flathead screwdriver, go underneath, and just pull up. That's how you take out. That's how you take it out. So watch, we're going to do the other one. Move this out of the way. Pick tool, flathead screwdriver. You'll see the little mark right here. Up. Make sure it's released. Then under and out. And move them off to the side. And take your airbag, put it on the passenger seat. Now with that removed, here's your bolt. The bolt is right in the center, and you see that little like pilot hole. That's where that middle part of the tool is going to come in. So now we're going to get ready to remove the steering wheel. For this portion of the job, you're going to need a 19mm socket. So that's why I said it's good to bring out your whole socket set. 19mm goes on like that. You could use a 3/8 or a 1/2 inch. I would not use a 3/4. I would not use a 1/4 inch drive on this, because there's going to be quite an amount of torque on this, because this is holding the steering wheel in. We use our extension, our ratchet, and this ratchet is pretty cool because it goes from being this type of ratchet to like a longer one. Now you would want a longer ratchet for torque. So steering wheel's locked. Also, what you want to do is make sure that the steering wheel, even though it's locked, make sure it's in a straight position, because when you put the new steering wheel on, it has to be in the same exact position as the old one that you took off, because if it's not, then your alignment, well, not your alignment, but it'll screw your, well, it will screw your alignment up, because your steering wheel will be crooked, and then you would have to straighten out the wheel. It's just I don't want to go too far into detail, but just make sure, it's very important, especially for the clock spring. The clock spring in here, which controls your airbag, which controls the steering wheel controls, and your blinker controls, it has to be straight, because if it's not straight, and if you actually spin the wheel too much and don't put the wheel on correctly, it'll mess up your clock spring. Now we're going to take it off. Here we go. If you can, put one hand on the steering wheel, turn with the other. Actually, it wasn't a lot of torque. We're going to take our 19mm nut. We're going to put it off with the rest of our hardware. Lay this off to the side. Now I'm going to go into details about a couple things. Alright, again, take note to where your steering wheel is positioned. As you notice, the steering wheel is completely straight. That's exactly where you need to put it. If you feel more comfortable, take masking tape and mark off on both sides on where the steering wheel was, or chalk tape, or whatever you need, just to give you peace of mind on where you actually left the steering wheel. Another thing to look at is, you see on the shaft, you see that little indent right there? Right above the pilot hole, there's like a notch mark. And you see the notch mark on the steering wheel? That'll also help you show where to put the steering wheel. So now we break out our steering wheel puller kit. I'm going to open it up. And out of our bolt assortment, we're going to pick which one fits into the threads. That actually fits perfect. Now you got to make sure that there's no wiggle, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Like, let's say, actually the sizes really aren't that. I mean, there's a really big one, there's a really small one. But basically, in your kit, if you take a bolt and you thread it all the way in and it goes like this is not what you want. Because what that'll do is it'll actually strip the threads inside here. And if you strip the threads on that, you're going to have a real hard time getting the steering wheel off. Because I've actually seen that happen where somebody did that and the steering wheel was half off and it was coming crooked a little bit. And then these threads broke. And I'll just put it to you like this, it's really difficult to get it off after that. So we pick out our threads. Well, we pick out our bolt that fits the threads. Which these two are it. Then once we pick that out, I'm going to grab our centerpiece. Alright, that goes right in the center there, behind the bolts. You see how it's got that indent? It's going to match up to there. Sometimes you have to use this piece. It depends on the application. Remember, it's a universal kit, so. See how it's a little, you don't want that. So what we do is, this is where these two washers come in. Put some 2 washers around here like this. Then we're going to set it up. We're going to hand thread these in first, and then we'll get them in the rest of the way with the ratchet. You're going to have to back this up a little bit sometimes. These sizes, they vary all the time, so that's kind of why it's a good idea to bring the whole socket set with you. I'm going to tighten these down. All we do is we make sure, you see when I do that, we make sure that it's not crooked, because if these aren't threaded in equally, it's going to make this off a little bit, and that's going to become a problem, because when you start turning this to remove it, the amount of pressure that's going to be on the steering wheel shaft and this, it's going to cause this to slip, and that'll mushroom the heads, and you don't want that when putting the bolt back on. So let's make sure it's good, which it is. We're going to start to turn this by hand. Now already what I don't like about this one is it doesn't have the matching pilot hole. This part doesn't go into the pilot hole. We might want to use this. Back this up a little bit. This comes with the kit. And the reason for this, when it doesn't fit into that pilot hole in the steering shaft, this is just so when this is under pressure, this thing doesn't slip and it doesn't mushroom the heads. I've seen that happen a couple of times already. So we sit there, we're going to thread it in until we get some tension. Which we got. And now this should be the same size, which it isn't. Let's try a 15. No, I'm off tonight. 16 mil. Alright, you guys see? Alright, here we go. 16 millimeter. I'm putting my knees up on the steering wheel and we're going to turn it clockwise. Look at that. You ready? Now, some cars will not do that easily. You'll see it's got a long travel before it finally pops. Remember how I said this is going to stay in it? So now what you do is, don't forget about the airbag wires. Be very careful. Send them through the steering wheel. Now your steering wheel is off the car. We're going to take this tool, we got to remove it just like we put it back on, and we're not going to use this again. That nut that we took off is what's going to bolt it down into the steering shaft again. Nice new leather wrap steering wheel. Put the wires through. Like I said, be careful. These are sensitive wires. You don't want to pull them. You don't want to stretch them. Pulling wires is a bad thing. You could stretch the impedance of the wire. You could do a lot of things. You actually break the wire inside the jacket. So you want to be really careful when you do this. You see this top piece right here? You want to make sure that's right where it was when you take it off. Because there's actually, on the back of the steering wheel, there's a spot for it. And that's where it's got to go. Alright, so remember what I said before about lining up the two notch marks? That's exactly what you want to do, and that's exactly what just happened. We're going to get it set. Okay. Give it a little push. And that's dead on. You can see it. Then we're going to take our nut. Place the nut on. And then once we screw it in, it's going to compress it back on. Now, where is that size? I think it was a 19 I said, right? Yep, 19 millimeter. Ooh. There we go. See? See how it went right in? That's what you want. Now it's one with the steering column. Hold the steering wheel. And you can feel it going in. Alright. Use your bottom knees, press up against the steering wheel, tighten. My Altima. This whole thing was a blank piece. It was actually a gray piece. The steering wheel controls for the cruise control were already there. So when I took the airbag off, you're going to see these Phillips head screws. One here, one here, one here, one here. Once you take those off, basically you just pull these back and they come off. And you're going to have to unbend these things, these little tabs here that hold them down, because this whole wiring harness will come out with it. This is from the other car. I should have made a video on it, but I didn't. Now, we're going to put the wires back where they belong, which was in here. We're going to lay it just like this. And now, as I told you before about remembering what goes to what, it's really foolproof. Orange to orange, yellow to yellow. It's just, there are some cars where when you take the airbag off, you won't see that and it won't have it where it's color matching. So you always have to be careful, because some terminals, they'll look the same, but they won't have the same terminals at the end, so they won't go. But then there are some terminals that are the same and can go either way. So if this wasn't color coded or labeled, you could put them in backwards. It just depends on the vehicle manufacturer. But for this, we got an easy job. To orange, sink it in, push the black tab. It's in. Yellow to yellow, sink the tab, in. Done. Now, flip this around. And we put our steering wheel control terminal back in to the clock spring. Make sure it clicks. We insert the airbag. Make sure it seats. You can do that. Okay. Now, take our 10mm. We're going to put it back in. Then, last thing on our list is to put these vanity pieces in. And this is it. It's a nice leather wrap steering wheel. Make sure the horn presses. And it's beautiful. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the battery back in, energize the car, start it up, make sure there's no lights or anything, which there won't. And another reason why you work on electrical systems on the cars with the battery off is so the computer doesn't store any fault codes. Now let's say if you had the battery on and you took the airbag off, even when I made the mistake of taking this top piece off one time just to change the AC vents, I actually disconnected it, and when I reconnected it, I had a blinking airbag. And you do not have to go to the dealer for that. I'll actually, anybody that has that problem, let me know that's done that, and I'll show you how to get it off. It's pretty easy. It involves key cycling and a couple other things. So tighten them nice and tight, then give it a wiggle, make sure it's not going nowhere. The final test. Everybody around the world to watch the airbag blow up in my face. No, I'm just kidding. Alright, we got power. Got a horn. Lights are working. Power's on. Now, if you originally had these controls with your car, what you want to do is wait for your radio to turn on, and then you do volume up, volume down, check it, press the source button, make sure everything works. I always had cruise control, so when you hit the button, make sure cruise works, and then you're all set. YouTubers, that is how you change the steering wheel on your 2007 to 2008 Nissan Altima. Any questions? Feel free to message me.